AIM-listed Anglesey Mining, EPIC code AYM, is the owner and operator of the historic Parys Mountain polymetallic mine on the island of Anglesey in North Wales. The company has sought to develop strategies to drive investment into the development of the mine, including an energy storage project. I'm joined today by Chief Executive Rob Marsden to tell us more. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Alan. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. So, Rob, before we look at the recent developments, what is Parys Mountain famous for?
Yeah, Parys Mountain's famous for the open pit, the great open pit, and the heritage assets around that great open pit that was started to be mined probably 3,500 years ago, and has continued through the ages. There's an engine house there that dewatered a mine from the 1800s, which was probably built with Cornish technology. And it's a great area.
Well, I visited Parys Mountain myself, of course, about a year and a half ago. Very exciting site visit. I saw the head frame, the core shed, drilling underway on the Northern Copper Zone. So much going on. So you must be really excited to be in charge of that.
Yeah, I am, and that head frame that you'd have seen 18 months ago. That's the modern part of the Parys Mountain site. So it's away from the heritage area, and under that head frame is a shaft that was dug in the 1980s, the late 80s. It's called the Morris shaft. It's about 300 meters deep. And from the 280 meters below the surface, development driveways were driven, and at that time a pilot plant was used on surface to do some test work. And since that time, the shaft has filled with water. The water is probably about 20 meters below the collar or the top of the shaft now. So you won't have seen the shaft.
No, I didn't see the shaft, but I saw pretty much everything else. And of course, the historic site, I believe, was used as a film set as well during the 80s. But I think what's really exciting is, of course, you've just announced the successful outcome of a study for a hydropower energy storage project with partner company RheEnergise at Parys Mountain. This is exciting if left field. Can you explain the project and how it's going to work?
It's all about using the Morris shaft and the underground development that emanates from it. I realised that actually that would make a very good lower reservoir for an energy storage system. So these energy storage, hydro energy storage systems, basically pump water between two reservoirs, an upper and a lower reservoir, and they pump the water up when energy is cheap during the night usually, and they let the water go down and generate electrical energy, when energy is expensive. And with the more and more green energy in the form of wind and solar particularly coming onto the grid, these are forms of energy that are not consistent. The wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine, and so the need for energy storage, clean energy storage, is getting greater and greater on the grid. And I was out at Parys Mountain, and I don't know whether they took you to where the processing plant is going to be, and the opening of the. They did, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and what's going to happen just next to where the pilot plant site is, that's going to be the portal for the decline that's going to go decline under the road there, and then corkscrew down next to the Morris shaft. And so the Morris shaft will always be used for a secondary egress from underground, and also for ventilation. So there's really no way of developing an underground mine, or no reasonable scenario to develop an underground mine at Parys Mountain without dewatering the Morris shaft. And if you're going to dewater the Morris shaft, then there is an opportunity, as I say, to use the workings emanating from the 280 meter level as a lower reservoir. And then if you can find an upper reservoir, you can actually use that difference in elevation to put in a hydro energy storage project. And I explored this and then came across RheEnergise. Now, RheEnergise is a UK based company, and they've developed something that's pretty clever. What they've developed is a fluid that's 2.5 times the density of water, but has the viscosity of about milk. Not quite as good as water, but it's pretty close. They make that out of minerals, or a large component of that fluid is minerals. And so I'm thinking, well, I've got a whole stockpile of rock on surface that was dug out of the Morris shaft in the 1980s, and I've got a lower reservoir that's already constructed. We don't have to pay for that, and I've got lots of land on the surface that could host an upper reservoir. And not only that, I've got a power line coming to site. And so all of these things that I've got would host a good energy project for RheEnergise. And I don't know whether you've looked into RheEnergise, but they're doing a pilot plant at the moment, a pilot study on a hillside in near Plymouth in Devon. Started speaking to RheEnergise and realised that they needed a place to put a first commercial project together. And really, both myself and Stephen at RheEnergise just sort of went, well, Parys Mountain is a fantastic candidate for that, because the majority of the capital costs of these projects are in the digging of the shaft and the lower reservoir, all of which I've got, although they're full of water. So the first part of the project is to pump the water out of the Morris shaft, which we've got a permit to do. So that'll be the first thing that we do. But at the same time, we'll engineer, the high density fluid, which is sort of RheEnergise is sort of part of that. It's their intellectual property. Hopefully, using as much of the waste from the Morris shaft horizons that are on surface already as possible to create that, and then look at creating the upper reservoir and link the two. Now, the linking of the two can either happen with pipes going down the Morris shaft, or we could raise bore a hole to link the two reservoirs together. So we've not decided on that yet. But either way, the powerhouse itself, the place where the kinetic energy of the fluid falling is converted into the electrical energy, that has to be underground. It has to be at the 280 level underground. And of course, we've got a shaft that's 4.75 meters in diameter and is able to be refitted for man riding and to get that equipment down to that level. So it just sort of all kind of clicked together. The really great thing about it, in my mind, is it actually progresses the development of a polymetallic mine at Parys Mountain. And the reason it does that is because, as I said before, there's no reasonable scenario by which you wouldn't dewater the Morris shaft if you're going to go underground mining at Parys Mountain. So that costs a bit. That you need to refit that shaft for ventilation and for man riding, so that you can have emergency egress from underground. So that can now happen within the energy project. And I said before that we've got an electrical connection. It's probably not going to be big enough for the energy storage project, but the mine and the processing plant could do with an upgraded electrical connection as well. So there's some good level of synergy between the two projects, which I think works quite well.
Well, thank you, Rob. That's really helped to explain clearly the synergies between the RheEnergise project and, of course, the mine, because a lot of the work that you need to do to install the project will be work that you'd have to do to bring the mine back into production anyway. So following on from that, will the project, once it's up and running, provide sufficient funding to bring the mine back into production?
Well, it will certainly help. I'm not sure it will provide all of the funding required. What RheEnergise and Anglesey Mining have agreed at the moment is that RheEnergise will look to retain their intellectual property over the high density fluid and the turbines and the pump development that they've been doing, and Anglesey Mining will retain the ownership of the property, and that the funder of the energy project will probably take a big slice of the revenue from the power, because we want this to be done by third party funding. But where Anglesey Mining benefits is we get, hopefully, the shaft dewatered for free, inverted commas, if you like, as part of the energy project. We get an upgraded power line. We get progression with our environmental studies, because this project and the mining project have overlapping environmental studies that are required. And so those things all progress, the development of the polymetallic mine at Anglesey Mining. Who knows? There's perhaps some revenues left over for Anglesey Mining. I mean, at the moment, we haven't identified those third-party funders, and we don't know what their payback requirements and so on and so forth will be. But either way, it progresses the mine.
Good. So how long do you think it'll take before the project is up and running?
Well, I've done some calculations on the dewatering of the shaft and the underground infrastructure, and I think that's nearly a year's worth of dewatering. We've got the permits in place to do that. We don't have to treat the water, but we do have to monitor its quality before discharge. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be on the critical path. So I'm keen to kind of get going with that as quickly as possible, because then that'll allow the refitting of the shaft to happen, and in my mind, probably the raise boring of the holes or the tunnels that I was talking about between the upper and lower reservoir. I think that's probably going to be a cheaper solution than putting steel pipes in the Morris shaft, but we'll see. In parallel with that, RheEnergise's part is sort of engineering the fluids out of the waste rock that's already on surface, thinking about how the development of the upper reservoir is going to be, getting the grid connection, which is always a challenge with energy projects, and we're well aware of that, and doing all of the permitting work as well. So really, we're talking about a 2 to 3 year project, I think, before we can get the first revenues from it, and the revenues are derived from that incremental power difference or arbitrage between when you pump the high density fluid up at night time and then drop it down during the day when there's demand for power. So that's one of the things, but there's also a capacity market, which I have to say I didn't know about until I started investigating this project. Projects putting storage of energy onto the grid are paid a capacity amount of money by the grid, and then there's also ancillary services like power factor correction and grid stability services as well. So, and those two other things, apart from the arbitrage, are becoming a greater and greater portion of other hydro energy storage projects' revenues, and so there's some important revenues in the suite to pay back the capital that's going to be required to put the project in place.
Okay, well, thank you for that very detailed explanation, Rob. But of course, Anglesey Mining, aside from Parys Mountain, also owns a 49% stake in the Grängesberg iron ore mine in Sweden, and also has a holding in Labrador Iron. Are there any plans to extract value from these, or will they remain in the portfolio as passive holdings?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're actively working on finding a way of extracting value from those. Our focus is on Parys Mountain and developing the mine there, and I think this energy project is a stepping stone to do that. But we are very much hoping that we can monetize the iron assets in our portfolio to help with that, so that we can share more in the energy project and get the mine into production off the back of that.
Okay. Well, of course, the RheEnergise partnership is a big step forward for Anglesey.
Mm.
What else can investors expect from the company in the near term, in the coming weeks and months?
Hopefully, they can expect the starting of the dewatering of the shaft, and the progression of the permitting and environmental studies that are ongoing, underpinned by the energy project. At the same time, there's a study going on which is linking all of the disparate bits of geological information that we've historically collected over the years. So that's progressing with a view to determining what the next exploration program looks like at Parys Mountain. That work has progressed a long way in the last sort of six months, and is ongoing. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about this energy project, because it just unlocks so much, in terms of the first steps that you would have to undertake at Parys Mountain, if you were going to continue to get into production.
Well, Rob, we wish you every success with this new RheEnergise partnership and bringing the energy project to life, and also Parys Mountain back into production. Just remains for me to say, Rob Marsden, Chief Executive at Anglesey Mining, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, Alan. Thank you.